well-attended event, and I know I've been excited for a while for this day to arrive. I'm an enthusiastic supporter of Angel Group Syndication. I've got my own personal reasons for that. I'm a 30-year veteran of the medical device industry and have done a couple of startups myself. And the most recent one, we struggled to raise money, and Angel Capital was an important part of our capital strategy. And our local group here, Rockies Venture Club, was the key to unlocking other investments because as a medical device company, typically the amount of capital needed exceeds the capacity of most of your typical angel group in order to meet the need. And so it would have been necessary in that circumstance not only to convince Rockies Venture Club to make an investment, but also a handful of other angel groups as well. So ever since that experience, I've vowed to know how to do that the next time I need to. So that explains why I'm such an enthusiast when it comes to angel group syndication. And I've personally been a member of Rockies Venture Club for the last year and a half to 2 years. And by the way, a show of hands, who's an RVC member? And then otherwise, who is a member of an angel group other than RVC who's attending today? I think half of them are up here on the stage. So I'm going to let each of our guests introduce themselves, and at the same time, I'm going to ask them to explain how the normal fundraising process works at their respective angel groups. Dorian here is from New Mexico Angels. Richard is from Tech Coast Angels, but I'll let them each take a few minutes and talk about their own background and where they fit within their respective angel group organizations and how does it work normally, and then we'll go on to describe similarities and differences with the so-called normal process and how it works for syndicated deals. Dorian?
Sure. So, you guys can move it up. My name is Dorian Rader. I'm with the New Mexico Angels. I've been with the New Mexico Angels for 8 years now. And before that, I was in technology transfer and an entrepreneur, just like a lot of you in the room. So I had a technology in brackish water desalination. So after my company, I went and decided to hang out with some angel investors, and I've been professionally raised by them ever since. So it's been an interesting ride. We're the New Mexico, you want me to talk about our group?
Yeah.
Is that okay? Okay. So the New Mexico Angels, we're a 501c6 group. We're 75 accredited angel investors. We focus on high-tech deals, so anything from life sciences to engineering and the sort. We stay away from software. I know that's kind of a bad word coming to Colorado. You guys have quite a bit of software up here, but we're not software investors. But we do a fair amount of deals. We invest about 4 times a year, about quarterly. And we're a smaller group, so we did $1.6 million last year in 10 different deals. We're early stage investors, but we're also follow-on investors.
So Richard Sudek from Texas Angels, bootstrap entrepreneur, started a computer company at age 24, $250. And bootstrapped that up for 17 years and sold it in '99 to SASC, which is a big engineering company. And I started with Texas Angels in 2000. So I've been a member since. I've screened about 1,000 deals myself, was chairman a few years back. So I've been pretty involved with Tech Coast Angels that entire time, and also was on the board of ACA. I went back and got a PhD, so I've been teaching and working with universities for the last about 8 years. A little background on Tech Coast Angels. We were founded in '97. We've invested in just over 300 deals, 304 by the end of the year. I don't have the recent numbers, but this is a couple months old. We've put about $180 million in those 300 companies and have approximately $1.6 billion of add-on financing. We had 60 exits. 60% of our portfolio is still active. Last year we were down a little bit. We invested $13.5 million in 33 new deals and about 30 follow-on. In 14 we invested $16.7 million and 24 new deals and more follow on. We get about 600 to 800 applications a year, and we're made up of 5 chapters. The main chapters being LA, San Diego, Orange County. We're founded out of Orange County and have, I think, 325 plus members.
RBC has a similar deal flow size, I guess. It varies, but it's between 500 and 1,000 applicants each year. Of those, maybe 80 to 100 might be invited to pitch at an event such as this one. And then of those, typically, 8 or let's say 6 to 10 might actually get funded. And again, that varies from year to year. The typical process is that either an entrepreneur will just discover us online and apply on the website, or the entrepreneur will be sent there by somebody that already knows about us. From that point, internally, the applications are screened. I mean, there's not a standing screening committee per se. That's the RVC senior staff that just does the screening and evaluation, and then a decision is made as to whether to invite that company to come and pitch. We also, at RVC, request that any applying entrepreneur attend Pitch Academy. So that's one of the necessary preparation steps in order to come pitch at RVC. Then, depending on response from among the membership that attended that particular pitch event, think of almost a popularity contest or a vote, if you will. Then that presenter may be invited back to a 2-hour deep dive. Our typical pitch at the beginning is a 5-minute pitch with 5 minutes of Q&A. And so the process will progress beyond that if there's continued and growing interest, and then a decision has to be made as to whether to dedicate the resources necessary to do a due diligence exercise on it and prepare a report. Once that's ready and the pre-money valuation is validated by RVC members, or RVC staff rather, then the deal is declared in play, and then we allow typically 2 to 4 weeks to gather up the investments from the interested members. The money all goes into a single-purpose LLC, which holds the money in escrow until the necessary minimum is reached, after which it's then dispersed to the company. So that's our usual process. But I'm curious to know how it works in your respective groups. Before going on to talk about syndication specifically.
Sure. So in our process, apply online, we do a quick admin screen just to be sure that they're not asking for $20 million. They're within that window. And we typically do a quick pre-screen that can be over the phone, and then they go to a chapter and typically pitch in front of 20 to 30 angels of that particular chapter, which is the normal 12 minutes of PowerPoint, 12 of Q&A. If there's some traction there, if there's some interest, then the due diligence team forms, and we're slower than we want to be. Having multiple chapters creates some issue there. But we would like to get due diligence done typically in 45 days. Sometimes, if the deal's hot, it will be done in less than 30 days. It can take up to 60 days. We try to work on getting a quicker no to the entrepreneurs so they're not hanging on. If the due diligence team is forming, we also have the deal go to other chapters, so it gets in front of other chapters, and then agree on a term sheet, and it can go back around at what we call the dinner or lunch meetings, but it doesn't have to. We also have a fund. We mostly write direct checks, but we do have a sidecar fund. They make a decision in 7 days, so that's much quicker. And that was really to help the deal lead get the deal done quicker, and also create diversification for our members to be in a lot of deals.
So we're pretty similar to both your groups. Our deal flow is a little bit less, even though we're in New Mexico. I don't know if it's fairly small, but we're location and technology agnostic. So we see about 400 deals annually. Of that, about I'd say about 20 to 30 make it to our screening committee, and our screening committee is a group of 12 people, and it rotates. So if we have a technology, you heard from John earlier with pesticides. So if John and I don't have expertise or background in that, or people on our screening committee don't have background in that, we're going to bring in somebody who's an expert in that, so we can have a better idea if this is a good deal or not. And if they get past our screening committee, they're invited to present to, we do dinners with our members. And so we do quarterly dinners and they present to our membership. And then from then, our members kind of give us a yay, nay, I'm interested, I'm not. And that's when we'll do a deeper dive of due diligence. And then we're pretty quick to a no also. We can usually get to a no the next day after the meeting, unfortunately, in some cases. But, a lot of times the due diligence takes about 2 weeks, and we can get checks out within a month or two.
Let's talk about syndication now. With Rockies Venture Club, I accompanied Peter Adams to the ACA conference in San Diego last spring. And at least for me personally, that was kind of my entree into the world of syndication. So of course I was eager to learn as much as I could and network with others from angel groups around the country also interested in syndication. But what I came to find was that at least at the beginning, the deals that we wanted to offer outward and also for us to consider deals offered by other angel groups, there wasn't really a process for that, and I'd like for us to talk about that some more. That seems to be slow in evolving as well, but it was as if the entrepreneur that was in RVC's deal flow and is being funded through RVC, if we were offering the deal out, we had to send the entrepreneur to each angel group and apply on the website or however you normally do it, which is why I was asking about the normal process. So each angel group pretty much insisted that our entrepreneur had to go through the regular channels. And so that's kind of how it started. And we've struggled ever since, I think. I mean, we're getting better, but we've struggled ever since trying to find a way to streamline that process and look for ways that we might make it more efficient, or perhaps a shorter process because it's a syndicated deal already vetted by a fellow angel group. So tell me something about your own experience so far with syndication, especially when you first started attempting to do it.
It's really difficult, and as the entrepreneurs here, I'm sure can attest, because I've been on the other side of it too from the entrepreneurial standpoint. You do have to jump through all of those hoops, and nobody seems to have the same due diligence requirements. Everybody has their own process, and so instead of hey, I'm not saying take my word for it that this is a good deal, but there needs to be a little bit more of a flow in than there is now. Right now it's very scattered and broken.
There must be some entrepreneurs in there.
What?
So I think that our process at Texas Angels is bad, and we're going to revamp it. But what we did is we started a monthly call with all the angel groups that are in our syndication, which is about 12, I think now. And the idea was to talk about the deals. If a deal has a term sheet in another group, we fast track it in. We might have a quick pre-screen on the phone, but it's designed to get it into a screening. We'll just move directly into the screening. We do require at this point the entrepreneur to come out to California. So we want the quick pre-screen for two reasons. Culturally within our group, that other people have looked at the deal, and two, we're still a little old school on wanting to be have the entrepreneur in front of us. We are looking to revamp that in that we put $250,000 of AV into the facility that houses the Texas Angels in Orange County. We can now stream and record. And so I think what we're going to do is pull more of the syndicated deals into our group so we can stream them to a whole network of 300 people. Not that 300 people will watch it, but certainly more than our chapter. Because right now, if you're an entrepreneur, you have to go through multiple chapters at Texas Angels because of our size. And that's just too hard for an entrepreneur out of the area. We look at the due diligence the other group provides as something that is really helpful in that we might want to do our own due diligence, but it's a huge jumpstart. So we'll take the due diligence you've done. We might do some of our own, but it certainly tightens the cycle down dramatically. We've taken deals in from Golden Seeds out of New York, and we mostly focus on deals in the West, and that's why we hosted the first Western Regional syndication meeting a few weeks ago in Irvine, in California, and the whole point of that was to bring in other groups to help build trust and relationships. And so I think we need to do quite a bit. I'm going to digress because I rarely listen to instructions or follow instructions. And just say one of the reasons why we did this, there are really a couple reasons. One is, if you focus on the entrepreneur, we needed a way to on-ramp them onto other groups for a couple of reasons. One is if we can't fill out the round, but two, we're concerned about the next round. We're concerned about the $1 to $3 million round. And we feel that if we can build this syndication network out properly, we can be that source, not Los Angeles, but the syndication can. We think we have a lot of companies at risk that if we're relying on the VC community or micro VCs to do that next round. So we think that's important to do that. There is a deal that came through Los Angeles from Golden Seeds that just finished a $12 million angel round, a therapeutics company. And although I think that's an anomaly, at our syndication regional meeting, we had that entrepreneur on the panel. And although I wouldn't suggest that we're going to try to do that, I think we do need, as an angel groups, to have the next round, round A or round B, depending on how you look at it, be able to coordinate at least for the entrepreneur.
Now, you've described the call-in you do every month. Talk more about that. How long has that been in place? How did you kind of get that started? Who are some of the participants in that?
So, I'm not going to remember all the groups. But we have Pasadena Angels, Bandon Angels, Sandhill Angels, Alliance Angels, ATIF, I think it's Arizona Tech, Desert Angels. We just added Rockies, we added Portland, and there's at least another group. And so we've been doing the call, I think, for, and also Jamie Rhodes out of the Texas, I'm forgetting which Texas group, but he's part of CTAM, the group that works within. We've been having that happen for about a year, I'll say, and that's been somewhat successful, although we've gotten more activity and more consistent with that now. I think we're going to restructure on the CCA side to make it easier for those deals to come in. I think there's still a cultural issue, which is correlated with age, but might just be the reality of angel investing. We need to trust the other groups, and so that's usually built by face-to-face contact. So we will hold this Western Regional meeting. I plan to be at all the other regional meetings, sort of in most of the West, to improve our relationships. And I would say we've certainly syndicated deals. I don't actually have the numbers, but we've certainly syndicated deals out and syndicated deals in. But we plan to do more of that.
By the way, everyone, our panel is scheduled to go for 60 minutes. At about halfway, about the half-hour point, I'm going to ask the audience to put forth questions about syndication. So spend the next 10 minutes thinking about what those would be. It could be anything related to syndication, from how to, or whether one can standardize due diligence among angel groups, how terms get negotiated, and whether the other participating syndication partners should or not accept those terms as originally negotiated by the source angel group. Any topic whatsoever. So please, think about that for the next 10 minutes. After which we'll break and start taking those questions. Dorian, I've been to Albuquerque to attend New Mexico Angels meeting, and it was pretty clear that part of the mission, as it probably is with most angel groups, is to support the startup ecosystem mainly within the state. But I can point to examples where you've syndicated with deals outside of New Mexico, for example, with Desert Angels in Tucson. Talk to us about how that process works for you and how long you've been doing that, and what kind of led to those relationships, and what did you have to do to get that going?
Absolutely. So, New Mexico is a small state, and there's not a whole lot of capital there, especially early stage capital. It's pretty much the angels, and that's about it, other than microloans. And so we really play an integral part in the startup ecosystem, and so we promote education very heavily. And this morning we were talking about angel to angel mentorship. So we're very big on that, and teaching the ecosystem about what angels are and what angel investing does. And so, but like I said, it's a small state, so we can only do so much. Just because we can't fill out a round doesn't mean we're going to syndicate every deal, but if a deal is worthy of syndication, we will. And we've been working with Desert Angels for about 4 or 5 years now, and it's based on the personal relationships. I have nothing against AngelList or Gus. We use Gus all the time for our deals, but it's you have to get to know a group. You have to get to know what their due diligence likes, dislikes are, what kind of deals they're looking for, what kind of team they're looking for. So it's very personal for us to partner these deals. So we've been working with Curtis and them out there, and it's been very successful for us.
Well, I'm wondering what kind of interrelationship needs to be cultivated and developed before angel deal syndication can start to happen. For instance, RBC has syndicated deals now and then over the recent several years with various groups around the country, including Tech Coast Angels, also Sandhill Angels in Silicon Valley, New York Angels, for instance. But these were, in those days, kind of a one-off sort of thing. I mean, we did it now and then. And since then, we've worked to establish ties here in the Southwest region, the surrounding states, which is why we now have working relationships with New Mexico Angels, Desert Angels, Lubbock Angel Network, and so on. And so that seems to be working for us, but it is really just a regional thing, and we'd like to reach out a little further. Now, within RBC, I mean, quite frankly, we struggle with the overall timeline from beginning to end for a deal, even with our normal process. And so we're continually re-examining that, looking for opportunities to shorten the overall process and to streamline it. But what has worked best for you in your experience, at least on the syndication part of it, after a company has either gone through your selection process locally for investment, or comes to you from a trusted partner that's already gone through that process? How is it different from the normal process, at least with regard to how long it takes beginning to end?
So, also I want to mention CRA Angels. I forgot to shout out Cotton Health. I thought it was a CRA deal there earlier. So you brought up the term sheet before. Our assumption is that the term sheet is going to be accepted by the other groups. Otherwise, if we put an entrepreneur through renegotiating the term sheet, I think that's too much. And so when we look at the deal coming and the term sheet is negotiated, and that can be one of the reasons we maybe say we don't want to look at the deal. I think that if a deal comes in from the network, we can try to fast track it in, get it screened within a couple of weeks, because we can use it through different chapters. The process for due diligence is much quicker because we typically, just do our due diligence on top of the other groups, so that can be pretty quick. There might be a particular area we want to dive deeper in, etc. So I haven't tracked the times, which is a good question, but our goal would be after they come in for a screening, which is a little bit of a scheduling issue. We would hope that we can again do our round in 30 to maybe 60 days if it went to multiple chapters.
And that's after the deal has gone through the normal process first, right? Before being offered?
Well, I'm talking about deal coming in. Sort of same difference on deal going out. We'll typically get fast tracked into the other group, but they all have their process is a little different. So band, they do their process a little different than us. So it depends on also calendar. So if we just miss their screening time, the entrepreneur might have to wait another month We have two screenings in Orange County a month. San Diego has one or two in LA. So we usually have enough that within a couple of weeks they can get into screening in Texas Angels. But sometimes for a smaller group, they might only have one a month. So if you missed it, you get a built-in delay just because of calendar.
Well, how does that vary depending on the source of the deal? I have to imagine that there are some partners of yours where you're used to working with them and you know that it's solid. But I have to think that there are others where you've got to do a little extra homework yourself.
I'm sorry, I don't quite understand the question. As far as when it's coming in or going?
Yeah, when it's coming in from one of your partner groups.
We don't look at it that way. In other words, we all write individual checks, and so we all make our own decision if we're going to invest in a deal. And so we'll look at the due diligence from another group. We don't really look. You can get caught up in halo effect, right? Is a deal from the Band of Angels better than a deal from the Desert Angels? Not necessarily. So I think that we each have to make our own investment decision, and we think the fact that it's a group that's respected means their due diligence is good. It doesn't mean it's perfect. Certainly ours is not perfect, but we haven't had issues with due diligence with other groups that's a big heartburn or concern.
Dorian, how does the timing work for New Mexico Angels for inbound or outbound deals, as far as they've already been vetted and accepted by the originating group, and now it's being considered for syndication by another?
Yeah, so I think it depends. So one thing that John and I are very aware of is other groups' timelines. So if we're doing an outbound deal, to somebody else, we need to be aware of what their timelines are. Do they only fund quarterly, monthly, weekly, whatever? And so just making sure that we're in sync with that, because it doesn't help them if we pitch it to them a week after they funded something else. But inbound, it also depends on the group. So, we're pretty cognizant of, the groups that we work with. So like I said, we worked with Desert Angels before. We're very comfortable with their due diligence. We don't, we're much like Texas Angels, we don't like to rework term sheets. We won't really do that. But, it's one thing we're very comfortable with that other groups aren't, are convertible notes. So if we know a group won't do a convertible note, or, vice versa, it's just something to consider. So I think it's a moving scale, and unfortunately I don't have a set answer for it. But, inbound, if they're a trusted partner, we can move pretty quickly.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, I think that brings up a good point, because something I forgot is we have a process where we have a call each month, and then that's when you save your deal and move it on. So we're gonna change that. We're gonna post the calendars for the different groups in our network, and we're gonna move deals on a weekly basis. We'll still have a monthly call, but that's to reduce that timing problem. We don't want to be in a situation where we have a call and 2 days ago we missed the window on 3 groups. So it's gonna take a little more coordination. But again, we don't do a great job. We need to do a much better job, because the entrepreneurs can't be strung out. Now, if the deal is done on our side, we'll get it out before it's closed. In other words, if a term sheet is negotiated and there's soft circle money, we're doing the deal, we can get it out so that at least the entrepreneurs don't have to wait for our close. They can get it out to other groups, and we'll bring it in the same way. We do want a term sheet negotiated, and we came up with that as a semi-arbitrary bar, because we felt that if a term sheet was negotiated, that the deal was far enough along. In other words, people aren't going to be working at Texas Angels on the deal unless they're pretty sure they're going to get it funded, or at least mostly funded, if the term sheet's done. So that's sort of our signal.
Let's take a minute before we start taking questions from the audience to talk about what the entrepreneur needs to know to successfully syndicate a deal. In my own experience with Rockies Venture Club, I'm a member, I'm an angel investor myself, and I'm lead investor on a couple of deals. And I'm happy to share with them or any of the entrepreneurs that come to RVC what they need to do in order to pursue syndication. And like I said, currently it's either, we kind of have an inside with the groups that we currently have relationships with. And then I just share whatever I know about any angel group throughout the national network, any other ACA member basically, on what they could do, where they could go to apply. But it's mainly an exercise in seeking out the websites online and applying. Now, there's a recent or current, I should say, deal or two that I'm leading that I've shared with you directly. But that certainly doesn't seem like a very efficient way to do things. So hopefully we'll figure out a way to do it a little better. But offer some advice to the entrepreneurs here today on how can they best take advantage and exploit what's offered through syndication. Dorian?
Yeah, so I think it's just a matter of, like, I think events like this are fantastic. It's getting out there. So for us, we prefer the warm leads, you introducing us to some companies that we do our applications via desk. But Gus, it's a website. There's no face attached to it. There's no story attached to it. You can only put so many words down. Even if you do a video, who's going to say that with all those applications, I, John, or our screening committee would get around to seeing it. I mean, I hate to say it, but that's the truth. So getting out and meeting as many people as you can so you can get that warm introduction to an angel group, I think is fantastic. And then getting to know that angel group. I throw out 200 applications instantly every single year just because they didn't read what we're even interested in. And so, making sure that the groups you're applying to, save your time, save your effort, make sure the group you're applying to is who you actually, want to go forward with.
Richard?
Yeah, I think that, if you're the entrepreneur, indicate early whatever angel group you're working with, you want to syndicate, that you're willing to go to other groups. So that when that group is ready to send the deal out or refer the deal, that you're ready to go. I'm real sensitive to entrepreneurs spending any money traveling to California to present a deal. That's wasted time and money unless there's a reasonable shot, and that's really hard to predict on the inside of each group. I think, again, we sort of go on the basis that whatever term sheet the group that's coming from, that's what we're going to do. Makes it a little easier for the entrepreneur. They don't have to renegotiate. So what they have to do is decide to commit to take a flight, present, and obviously do a little bit of work with the deal lead to get the deal moving along. I don't have much more.
I'd like to start taking some questions from the audience now. Who's got a burning curiosity about anything or everything syndication? We'll get to you in a minute, Bruce. Right here, please. I'm sorry, I've got the microphone.
So I'm not good. My question is, why is there like a curated or invite-only source for you guys? So as an entrepreneur, I went to the first screening, and you're like, oh, this company's interesting. Fill out this massive profile in this invite-only space, and then you guys can build dashboards off of it. So you guys each have your own dashboard, your own process. There's only so much information as a company I can give you to get to me past. So you screwed me. Now I'm invited in. I can fill out all this data. Sorry, you guys can then put all your dashboards on top, and then it's just reduced down to conversations, which is all an entrepreneur wants to have anyway.
So,
right?
Yeah, so our approach is we're in ProSeeder, and most of the groups in our network are on ProSeeder now. And so if you've put your application in your group, if you're on ProSeeder, it just gets moved to us. You don't have to fill anything out, additionally. So that's the answer to the mechanical piece. What was the first part of the question?
That's pretty much it. So
Okay.
Are you trying to normalize everyone on that across?
We're not trying to normalize it. What we're trying to do is simply move the due diligence and the information on your company over quick. We are working with ProSeeder from Technos Angels to create a special regional network within ProSeeder for the network that TCA is leading to make it easier, and they're going to customize to help move the deals around, both for the angel side and for the entrepreneurs. So we just had that talk with ProSeeder. I don't know what that's going to mean, but right now we can push the deal, so that part's pretty easy, but we want to actually make the calls and the rest of the pieces easier for the groups.
Now, were you asking why can't we have like a universal application portal? So rather than you applying to RVC, you apply to, let's say you open a Gus profile or a ProSeeder profile, and then all the interested groups just kind of automatically do their
Yeah, but
thing?
it would be invite only, right? So because you don't want me applying to your funding because I'm a software guy, right? So you might like me, bring me in, but then I'm under your control. And then when you're over here at Tech Coach, you're like, well, I'll come in, but I want to run my own dashboard off this data. This is data at the end of the day. And then you get your instant answers, and then the top of the conversation is much smaller.
So I'm not sure I understand what you mean by dashboard. In our syndication network, if their deal's going to be pushed out, everyone gets it at the same time. So there's no dashboard, there's no way to check it. If we want to move something immediately, we can move it through Dropbox if we have to move due diligence or something. So I'm not sure I understand the question beyond that. It's not a matter of moving your information. It's a matter of the group saying that kind of deal. Like if she doesn't want a software deal, she's going to pass on it. That's really the issue.
And so we participate in Life Science Angels, and so Life Science Angels isn't one angel group, it's a grouping of a bunch of angels. So we participate, a lot of other, coastal angels participate. And so it's kind of like that, but without the software element, I guess. But we have a call weekly, and then, a video call monthly about here's all the deals we saw, here's the deals that apply to life sciences. But by applying just to life sciences, because it's just a very focused niche, it opens you up to 38 groups at once.
So you're speaking about ACA Life Sciences,
Yes.
not LSA.
Correct, yes,
Okay.
sorry.
John, I think Bruce Dorian had a question.
Yeah, I have a question and an observation. Thank you. So we have the unique experience of being funded by our VC and now by TCA. And I want to say that the process has worked surprisingly smoothly. And thank you. It's been a good experience. The question is, it's more and more difficult, or maybe it's always been as difficult, but it seems like VCs are less and less interested in not just seed investments, but early stage Series A type investments. Do you guys see angel syndication as an alternative way to really expand the access to Series A type capital?
Well,
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, that was one of the reasons we stood up to syndication network was for that reason. Just because we've had a number of deals either get crushed, right, or die because we couldn't get them the next round. And so we think we should be not necessarily responsible, certainly from a legal point of view, but take care of the entrepreneur up through a few $1 million. And then beyond that, now we make introductions to VCs in the Valley, but then they sort of are on their own. But we need to help them get that next round, and certainly make the introductions to the VCs. But we think we can do that through this syndication. I also want to step back and say, look, the world's changing. With these platforms that was discussed earlier, we got to adapt. We got to move quicker. We got to remember that the entrepreneurs need us to move faster. And we talk about it, but we really need to do it. If there is going to be a crowdfunding model that's going to work, think how ridiculously archaic we are. We're like the railroad. So we got to figure out how to do syndication better and faster so that we can fund the deals. And there'll always be a place for local groups, but I think that we have a chance of losing good deal flow if we don't figure this out quick.
I'm still continually astonished at how manual the angel investing process is, kind of throughout the whole national network. There are some automation tools out there and available, like Gust, but still, it comes right down to the interpersonal relationships, people making phone calls, scheduling events on calendars. An awful lot of it is manual. So yeah, I agree. And Bruce, just personally for me, that's my main motivation too, and that is it's relatively simple for a first-time raise, at the seed stage, for an entrepreneur to come to RVC or another angel group and raise the $250,000 to $750,000 needed for that particular seed stage. But the recent examples over the last several months or so, of RVC companies coming back for the second, and in some cases even the third round, calling it Series Seed B or Series Seed C. I mean, we're inventing new names for this now because it's still a little large for one angel group, but too small for the VC community. The only way we can do those is through syndication, and that's what's made it possible. John, is there another question up here?
Hi, I'm Roger Tonis. I'm the CEO of MTusker, and I resonate with what you guys are saying about this. I've just gone through the process with RBC, and we're going into deal and play as of today. We're going to be pitching tomorrow, and the experience has really been great. It's been painful at times, but I think RBC is, I want to recommend it to entrepreneurs that RBC has been moving really quickly. In fact, they've changed the way they're doing due diligence to go faster. And our due diligence just came out yesterday, and it went a lot faster than it has in the past, so I'm really happy with that. But what I want to ask about is, one of the things that I've been doing as an experienced entrepreneur is I know other angel groups that RBC hasn't known. So I've made introductions to Dave Reed at the Baylor Angel Network for Peter, and also for Dan Del Mar at the Harvard Business School Angels of New York, and a couple of others, including Sandhill Angels, where I know Ralph Eschenbach. And what I'm wondering from you guys is, how much can we as entrepreneurs, in fact, kind of help get you guys together, since some of us know people you don't know, and really help you syndicate? What can entrepreneurs do to help you guys get this done? Because we want you to get there as soon as possible, just like you do.
So don't wait on us. Go to those other groups and pitch at both. I mean, there's nothing stopping you. No, go to the other group. As soon, if you have traction in another group, it's going to be a lot easier to get your group to get connected to them. So I'd say don't wait. Just go.
No, you're good. No, I completely agree. And, we've had entrepreneurs actually kind of change the direction of who we were syndicating with because of the relationships they had. And so that helps a lot. I know I'm harping on it, but the personal relationships really do drive these things. And so, we partnered with an Indiana angel group that's, Indiana's not close to New Mexico by any stretch of the imagination, and I don't think we'd ever cross paths except for the ACA meetings. But and it was driven by the entrepreneurs.
Well, how did you meet up with them? Through one of your entrepreneurs, or was it at the ACA summit?
Entrepreneurs brought them to us.
So let me just say that be aggressive, not arrogant. Right? Oh, well, New York Angels are looking at this deal, you better. Bullshit. Right? Hey, we're presenting New York Angels. Good. I want to see you're out there. I want you pitching all the time, because you're going to be pitching for all your future rounds, so there's nothing wrong with pitching in multiple groups, in my personal opinion.
Now, one way we've tried to network and reach out and establish relationships with other angel groups in the interest of syndication is by attending the ACA annual summit, the Angel Capital Association. This year it's in May in Philadelphia. Raise your hand if you're planning to go. I would certainly urge more people, especially the senior active angels within the group, to go there. That's been golden for us in the past.
The old angels, the senior angels?
Yep, that's us. That's us.
Well, I teach, and if you're over 40, you're nearly dead in the classroom.
But anyway, we'll be taking advantage of that in order to network even further. This whole syndication thing is really a kind of an organic growth sort of thing, where you have to meet someone from an angel group that you might have heard of or that you're interested in, exchange cards, chat for a while over lunch or something at a meeting or conference, and then just follow up from there. I think with regard to New Mexico Angels, we initially got acquainted, perhaps even as long as a year ago. And that doesn't instantly establish a syndication relationship. So, it takes time to get acquainted with people. You attend each other's angel group meetings and things like that. And, it really does take a period of getting acquainted and establishing that relationship.
I just had a question real briefly about what dictates what type of industries that angel groups invest in. Dorian said that New Mexico Angels doesn't have a tendency to invest in software companies. So I was just curious if it was something decided by the angel group itself, or if it was expertise of the individual angel members, or if it was the industries have a tendency to have really high angel benchmarks, because I know software has a tendency to have fairly high initial investment. So I was just curious about what dictates the industries that you invest in.
That's a great question. So, like I saad, we're not into software right now, but that could change in 10 years or 5 years or 2 years. It's just that's the taste for my, they write individual checks. And if, I've presented a number of software deals to them and they didn't bite. So, I just know what they're gonna go for and what their expertise is in and their liking. And but it can change as I get more new members. We're a pretty diverse group as is. I think we're the only Hispanic-led angel group, and we have quite a few female angel members. But it's always changing. So for us, it's just because I say no software now doesn't mean no software ever. But New Mexico has typically been a really heavy in the biotech space. So that's just it. That's I think kind of how our angel group started in '99. So that was kind of their foundation for it. But it has changed since. So it could change again. But that it's just the personal taste of my investors.
Rockies Venture Club, is fairly agnostic when it comes to industries or verticals. I mean, we'll look at just about any deal and judge it on the merits of the terms of the deal mainly.
Yeah, I think it's all, some angel groups are by design life science angels out of the Bay Area, is focused on life sciences, obviously. We do a little bit of everything. We do consumer, we do financial services rather, hardware, internet software. We tend to do less consumer, less financial. But you can go to almost any angel website and normally they'll tell you what they invest in and they'll give you a portfolio, so it's pretty easy for you to figure out. But as Dorian said, I think it changes. It's based on the group. But we have enough members at 300 members, we sort of cover almost all the sectors, not all, but a lot of the sectors, life sciences included. So it depends on the group.
And they really do. Like we talked about this morning, diversify. We have everything in our portfolio from a tea company in Boulder to a pharmaceutical company that's trying to cure cancer. So it's all over the map, but we're looking for a good deal.
So I have a question along the lines of keeping score. And Richard, you made the comment, I think it was you who made the comment earlier, that the different groups, no group is really kind of better than another group in terms of how they go about doing their funding and making their decisions and things like that. And I guess I would disagree with that somewhat, because I would think that some groups are going to be better than other groups in terms of predicting which companies are going to be most successful. I'm currently reading a book called Super Forecasters by Philip Tetlock, a great book, I would recommend it. And essentially they talk about the best forecasters, whether it's political forecasters, financial forecasters, people that are looking at global events, things like that. There are some groups and individuals that have characteristics that are just simply better in terms of predicting events that are going to happen. And they provide odds ratios and things like that. So my question is, and I think it's great that the groups are working together and talking to each other, but some groups will ultimately be better at doing this than others because they focus on characteristics of companies that other groups may miss, or they weight them differently. So my general question is, how do you keep score among the different groups? It could be too early to be keeping score, but are you setting up processes to be able to figure out how well you are doing in predicting the future around the companies that will be more successful than others?
So I've got a long answer for this. I'll try to make it short. So I've been doing this since 2000. When I did my PhD, I decided to look at how investors make decisions. And I was very curious about this because I thought it was much more scientific before I got into it. And I found out it's not. So I tracked 400 companies. I videotaped 300 companies. I was able to predict a deal based on the cognitive style, personality, experience, and regulatory focus of the investor rather than the deal. And the problem is that you have to run it for 10 to 15 years because most exits take over 7. If they tend to fail quicker. So, looked at the data. I've worked with Rob Wolfbank, who does a lot of data analysis. We co-authored some papers. Was it Scott earlier, the gentleman that spoke in the beginning? He's still 2/3 he's wrong. And Kleiner and the others still have a pretty big percentage that's wrong. So I would be pretty careful. I've talked to a lot of people and I've done a lot of research and I've tracked deals and others. I'm a Golden Seeds member, so I do research in Golden Seeds and others. I don't think there's a formula. I do know from team leadership research that when you build teams with higher diversity, they make better decisions. And so I can tell you that the more people look at the deal, the more people will participate in due diligence, more likely, unless they're all the same cognitive set, more likely the due diligence is better. But I'd be real careful to keep the score. I know that our IRR, if you invested in auto deals a few years ago, was 24.5, I think, which is a reasonable IRR. That's a sort of a typical VC IRR. I do agree that not all groups do due diligence the same, but it happens, it depends quite a bit on who the deal lead is. I mean, a lot of groups, right? Because although you might have a formula or a template for due diligence, each deal lead might do it a little better than the other. So I'm sure you didn't like that answer, but just being around angel investing for a long time and diving deep into the research for quite a while, I'm not really working that research much anymore. I'm convinced there's still a lot of luck involved with this process. And I do agree with Scott, it's gut. Gut or intuition is basically your brain working at a subconscious level and connecting dots it's not fully aware at the conscious level. So gut has some reasonable, valid ability to assess. I basically just didn't say anything, and that's what happens when you get a PhD. You talk a lot and don't say anything. So I used to run a company and be able to answer things succinctly, but now I just don't. Sorry.
Okay, before we take the next question, we've got, looks like 7 or 8 minutes left or so. I'd like for us to kind of transition towards the conclusion of our panel discussion with where we see syndication going as a trend over the coming several years, or perhaps even better put, where must it trend toward or evolve to in order to meet the needs of our startup ecosystem?
So slightly along that bent, convertible debt was mentioned briefly. So do most or all angel groups accept relish in convertible debt or not? And if so, why not? What are the pros and what are the cons of that? And then how does that impact the ability to syndicate?
So in my experience, I actually presented I was on a panel about convertible notes and convertible debt with the Southwest Angel. They had a summit out there. And I got raked over the coals from my stance on convertible notes and convertible debt. They really don't like them. And, we've made a lot of money on convertible debts. We have no problem with it. From what I understand, the groups that don't like them think that either the cap is too high or that there is no cap. So that's the only reason I've heard for people being against it. But we're very, very comfortable with it, but not everyone is.
Techno Standard are very comfortable. We look at the cap as that's the price. We rarely think the deal will not be at the cap, and we just assume that, so we don't have any issue with it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure any investor would prefer to have equity just because it makes the terms or the definition of the terms much more crisp. But we're fine with convertible debt as well.
Tax exemptions, another thing for equity. 1022 federal tax exemptions. Makes equity better.
Yeah, you guys have state here, we don't. California, we will be the last state to have any kind of tax advantage. They're just trying to figure out how to add tax every freaking month.
Yeah, but you said it was a federal, right?
No, he's talking about the federal, but you have the state break here in Colorado, which is nice.
We
Yeah.
have one in New Mexico too. So in New Mexico, if anybody's looking to invest in New Mexico, you get 25% back in your taxes.
Well, that's if you file a New Mexico tax return.
Come to come down to New Mexico, it's great.
Now, I'd like to daydream out loud a little bit on what.
Sure. About investing or?
No, it'll be filtered. Yeah, it's about angel investing, it's about syndication. And that is, if the intra-angel group syndication process were to work much better than it does today, what attributes would it have? And I think about this all the time. One of them would have to be some minimum standard for conduct of due diligence, to the point where, you know, at least to some minimum level before the receiving group for a syndicated deal attempts to do additional due diligence, that the minimal amount done already, at least to the degree where the consensus among the angel groups would allow for this, that there is such a thing as a due diligence standard of practice, so that anyone or any group that subscribes to this standard can accept what was already done and trust it. Now, I know that's wishful thinking. We may never get there. Another attribute of a better functioning syndication process among angel groups would be what the gentleman here was suggesting, that, you know, some kind of a dashboard that would make the process a little more universal, so that it would look the same to an entrepreneur in Albuquerque or Omaha as it would to one right here in Denver. And so I'm curious to know what others think might be necessary, or what might grow up organically just to satisfy the need that we have. Any thoughts?
What about tracking the investments after they happen?
Tracking the investments after they happen? Well, you know, in the RVC example, there was no way to track them until we started the practice of the single-purpose LLC to gather up the investments and hold it in escrow until the minimum is reached, and then disperse it to the company or the entrepreneur. That allows for tracking the performance, but that's only happened so recently that there haven't been any exits yet, successful or unsuccessful. So that's going to take some time to know. Richard, how are you guys doing that currently?
As far as tracking investments?
Yeah.
So, I mean, one of the things that entrepreneurs probably should understand is that although the angel groups have people with money, the actual groups themselves don't have a lot of money. This doesn't make sense to you probably. So, you know, we have part-time administrators that track a lot of this for us, and we're a volunteer organization. So, in Techless Angels, there's no compensation for any of the directors or the chairman or the president or that type of thing. It's volunteer. And we really try to be pretty cognizant of cost and membership costs, so we tend not to put a lot of money in infrastructure. So that's not a good answer, but that's the real answer. So we do track our deals currently through spreadsheets, very complicated big spreadsheets, because we've had so many deals, 300 deals, and track all the rounds and the value of the rounds, etc. But one of our biggest problems is the entrepreneurs will not report back. So our biggest issue with tracking, I mean, we can track when the exit happens, which is all that really matters, is that often the entrepreneurs won't, even though it's in their term sheet, in other words, that they have to report, but we have to chase them a lot. So I don't have a good answer there. Yeah, I'm just talking.
Any more questions? We've got time for one more.
So again, just about how we have multiple groups, they decide who's going to take the boards.
So
who's going to take the board seat for multiple groups?
Is wherever the deal originates. I mean, our model is when the deal originates, that's the group that's going to watch that investment. They're going to be on the board. We assume that if a deal comes out Desert and the company's located there, Desert Angels rather, they have the board seat, and that's all we need. I mean, they're aligned with our interest.
We had Sam Hill take our board seat once because they had expertise and added value to do that.
That's a good point. We would also do that too. We would typically take the board seat, but we would be glad to give up the board seat if we found someone that was really a domain expert. But typically it's the group that originates.
Yeah, is that Cirrus? Cirrus MD? Yeah. Steve, did you have a question?
I was going to broaden the discussion a little bit by asking if it's appropriate to talk about secondary market in this setting for exchange of equity positions.
It's kind of beyond the scope of the panel, and luckily we're out of time, because I don't know the answer.